thank you for inviting me here. And probably this is the most difficult time for the presenter to keep the audience after the lunch awake. But this is not the case with this presentation. I think, as I'm worried that the figures I'm going to present to you will have a negative effect on your digestion. So the transition of demography of Armenia within 25 years. Actually, during these 25 years, Armenia has gone through a very interesting transition, not only from the demographic point of view, but within a night, we have turned from the industrial society to postmodern society. Industrial society, when it was pretty completely closed, there were very linear solutions of any problem, including demographic issues or population issues, taking it more wider. And then we appeared in the world when there was, we've been alone. There were no ready-made solution coming from north or from the center. And then we started to realize that we need probably to become more mature, more complex society in order to meet those challenges that requiring more complex approaches. Huh? So this is from this perspective that I want us to look at the situation that I'm going to talk about next about 10-15 minutes. So we had all three main drivers that influencing demography per se. Huh? And those are migration, fertility issues, and aging. Aging by itself has become a driver because of the consequence of the first two, the migration and the low fertility. Let's start from the most strongest driver, which has strongest impact. That's migration. As you can see, we have overall lost 1.5 million of Armenian population due to immigration from the country starting 1988. But also there are two waves there, like one from 88 to 2000, when we lost around 1.1 million population, and that was mainly because of socioeconomics, worsening of socioeconomic situation, war, earthquake, energy crisis, and many other things that were at the time were very strongly impacting the behavior of the population. And then there is the second wave from 2000 up to now, when we have lost about 444,000 people. And as you can see, it's going by waves there, by fluctuations, about which we will talk a little bit later in more details, how it is changing. Huh? A little bit of the structure, and I want to bring your attention to the first point. 90%, more than 90% of our migration is to Russia. This is coming to the point from the previous panel, how much independent we can or want to be, or can allow ourselves to be from our northern neighbor. Let's talk about the fertility and population numbers. I think the figures are pretty self-explaining. We have go down within 25, 26 years by more than 500,000 in total population, and this is the de jure population, the people registered as Armenian citizens in the country, not de facto. De facto would be even lower. Number of births have gone down almost twice again, as well as the fertility rate. From 3.2 per woman, we are now having 1.5, 1.6, depending on the methodology you are counting it. And then natural increase of population, 5 times low now. If in 1990 we were having 59, almost 60,000 people plus in natural growth, meaning that 60,000 more children being born than old men died. Now we are having only 12,000 of that difference. And the last one, very interesting actually, a new phenomenon of this transition. That's the distorted sex ratio at birth, which is the distorted number of born boys and girls in the country. Natural as it was in 1990. It's 105 to 105 boys to 100 girls. As now, as you can see, it's 112 boys to 100 girls. This is a very strong distortion. We'll talk about the consequences a little bit later as well. And the third one, which has become also already by itself as a driver, as I said, is aging. I mean, obvious, we have increased our aging population twice, 60 plus aged population twice. 65 plus population now is 11%. But what is more worrisome here for me is the dependency ratio, old age dependency ratio. Though overall we can see that the overall dependency ratio a little bit decreased from 56% to 51%, this change took place only because of the fact that the number of birth and fertility rate has gone down considerably. And in long term, this is going to be a very strong threat and risk for us, actually. So we've gone through the transition of demographics. Let's talk about the demographic transition. What demography we have in this point of the transition. Huh? Just to remind you, just to visualize what I have said before that, up till now, what we have. In 90, we had almost the ideal pyramid, as you can see, with very wide base, a lot of children being born, not very many aged population. But in 26 years, now we are having what we are having. Very distorted base, less children born, and increase of the aged population at the top. And also, if we look at the figures, particularly at the first 3-4 lines of the pyramid, we will see the distortion of sex ratio. More boys are born than girls. Okay. So now, as I promised, let's come back to this. Diagram again. Huh? In reality, this is not only diagram, but also the behavior pattern. If you look at that, we can see how the people were reacting on the different change, political, economic, social changes in society starting 2000. I mean, before 2002, 2003, it's going a very strong emigration is still there, as you can see. But then in 2004, when we had a very strong economic growth for several years, double-digit growth, you can see the first time within 26, only 3 years in this modern history, we had positive migration saldo there. So people started to come back, actually, or live less than being born. And then again, in 2006, 2007, 2008, when we had famous political events in 2008, and then combined with the financial crisis in 2009, when the GDP has gone down by almost minus 15%, people started to react on the situation there. And now we're at 2017, where we, just 1 week ago, we had our new election, and that is going to also be one of the decisive factors, how it is going to evolve and how people are going to react on this political change now, with the new reality of new structure of Armenian statehood, moving from presidential to parliamentarian state. Some of the projections, of course, these are only projections, and they should be taken as a projection. Many things can influence those projections, but as you can see, the absolute number of births has peaked in 90s, almost 80,000 births per year. That is the highest number during the known Armenian statistical history for the births in the country. But then in 2001, we had a lowest figure, 32,000. And then a little bit it stabilized, and in 2010, we had 44,000, a little bit more than 44,000 births per year, absolute number again. And that brought some kind of euphoria in the society, saying, the birth rate is coming back. But in reality, it was not that case. It was the reason of those born in 90s, 80,000 born in 90s, who entered in reproductive health and started to have their 1.5 children. So in reality, the number of mothers and fathers has increased in society of the active reproductive age. It was not the increase in fertility, actually. And then in 2016, we are having now again 40,000. And as you can see, it's going down by 1,000 births per year constantly, more or less, about 1,000 births per year. And according to our projection, in 2006, we will have 26,000 births only versus 40,000 of today. That is considerable, because that's also already starting to go to national security issues. On the aging situation, if now we are almost 11% of 65 plus, by the mid of this century, we will be 22, 24%. 1/4 of our population is going to be 65 plus, which is bringing also very strong socioeconomic consequences on that. How we are going to react on this? This is very important, actually. Yeah, but just some points here as well. This is also a behavior thing. It's not only anymore, not only socioeconomic thing that the birth rate has gone down, actually. It's all about the changes of perception in the society, changes of the perception of the family well-being standards, changes of gender roles, changes of work-life balance. A lot of changes taking place in the country. And it's not anymore that people dreaming to sit around the table with 7 sons, as we used to say, but it's about thinking of the family well-being, what are the conditions that having your next child is not going to risk the well-being of your family. And this is very important. And then the issue is to create that environment when people would like and would think about having their desirable number of children, which is still 3 to 4 in Armenia. Versus the European countries, when it's 1 to 2, Armenia desirable number of children is 3 to 4. Or in this case, I always remember the joke of Armenian radio when it is asked if it is possible to control the fertility. After long silence, it answers in Marxist way, saying no, because the means of productions are in private hands. Meaning that we really need to create an environment where this private use of the tools will be used for the reason, so that it is not a risk for the families to have their next children. So that's begun. And these are some of the population projections that we have. We have done 4 scenarios. The highest scenario is 3.1 million by 2050, as you can see, even with the 2.11 fertility, the total fertility rate, if it comes up to 2.11, which is not realistic, actually. And the worst is 1.6 million by 2050, which is half of today's population of Armenia. De jure population, again, because de facto is a little bit different thing. Huh? And finally, I want to talk about this figure. You remember I talked about the sex selection or distorted sex ratio at birth. Armenia, unfortunately, has become one of those countries, and it is 3rd in the world with this figure. After China and Azerbaijan, we are having the highest distorted sex ratio for the born children. And if, according to our projections, if we continue the same practice, by 2060, there will be 93,000 girls lost, not born, which means future mothers and which means we are cutting down by almost 100,000 our maternity base. For you to just imagine what figure it is, it's just 2.5 years of total birth in Armenia. You just imagine no children born in Armenia for 2.5 years. That's serious figure. And of course, it's going to have its consequences on the demographic structure in the future. So what is the thinking? What we should do? Maybe moving from the targeting the fertility per se, as it used to be done until now, meaning that, as I call it, buying children from the parents by financial incentives, in more complex solution, creating the environment where every family, particularly every woman, would not see the risk of the next child as a threat for her family and family well-being. That's one thing. Second, aging. Should we see it as a burden or as an integration? How we are going to solve this issue? Are we going to finally bring to the end our pension reform, or increasing the pension age from 65 to 63 as it is now to 65, 70? Or maybe we need to take more complex solution, like creating infrastructures where the old population will be, the number of old population we are going to face. Services for them. In Armenia, there is no service for gerontology, for example. And with 25, with a quarter of population coming to that age and needing that services, that's, I think, one of the important things to have. How we are going to solve the issue of this dependency, age dependency. And this is basically talking about myself, because I am the tomorrow's old person, and my son is going to have the trouble paying for myself, because he has to pay, two people should work to pay for one person only, while today it's 5 people are working for paying for not working person. I mean, the ratios are pretty strong and pretty difficult. And of course, the migration, should we take it as a catastrophe, or we should try to understand that this is anyway unavoidable and try to use the fruits of it? Like we have already we're starting already to see some components of this approach. We have Repat Armenia, a successful project which is bringing back the successful Armenians to the country, and there have already more than 300 people back, professionals who have established business or started to work in Armenia, moving back with families. Or another interesting phenomenon is now the Syrian Armenians coming to the country. They are changing the culture. The culture in service provision in Armenia has changed considerably. And you can see it in each and every restaurant. So that's kind of cultural also variations that are taking place with all this transition in demographic structure. So basically, this is all what I wanted to say, and thank you very much for your attention.